Hello and welcome to this episode of Rick's Garage. So today is part 4 in a multi-part series on the engine bay restoration on my Alfa Romeo GTV 3litre V6. See you in a moment. So yes, welcome back to the channel. As I say, today is part 4. If you haven't yet seen parts 1, 2 and 3 guys, you can find it in the playlist entitled Engine Bay Restoration Alfa GTV. So yes, part 4, what we are doing today, it's a continuation. Obviously, we are removing the plenum chamber and the valve covers, but as well as that, I am showing you how to remove the injectors and the fuel rails as well. Now, I know that there are a couple of videos out there now of removing valve covers and the plenum chamber and things like that, but I haven't yet found one at removing the injectors and the fuel rail, so I hope this video helps. So yeah, quick start today, let's get involved. We've got a job to do.
Now, as some of you may remember from the previous episode, the framework of the engine bay is now all freshly painted and looking fantastic. As much as I would like to reassemble as much as I possibly can back to some kind of normality, unfortunately I've now got further disassembly to do, because there's lots of parts from the engine itself that I need to send off together to the zinc platers. So first things first, remove the spark plug cover, which is held on by 4 5mm Allen bolts. The wiring loom to each coil pack is held on by 3 little clips, a little bit awkward to remove but not difficult. Next is to unbolt each coil pack. Each coil pack is held on by 4 5mm Allen bolts. Now, one thing that will be your best friend in this job guys is an electric ratchet, because there is a hell of a lot of bolts to remove in this little project. So out come the coil packs, nice and easy. Oddly enough, each of the connectors onto each of my injectors are held on with zip ties. Presumably whoever removed these in the past either lost the clips or broken the connectors. Either way, these are going to have to be replaced upon reassembly. Only 1 out of 6 injectors actually has the clip intact. So with that out of the way, the next job is to remove one 13mm nut which holds on a little bracket and the earth strap to the side of the rocker cover. Also on the other side there is another little bracket held on by 2 more bolts, because underneath the middle is a bolt to the rocker cover which is hidden. So with that bracket out of the way, it will expose that Allen bolt. In total there are 11 6mm bolts holding down each valve cover or rocker cover. Now bear in mind, one of these bolts goes through a tiny little bracket which holds the dipstick tube in place, as you can see just here. Once you've removed the bolt, it will help to remove that bracket because it may foul the valve cover when it comes to lifting it up. Personally, I will also be replating this when it comes to replating the rest of the hardware. So with those bolts removed, I can now proceed to remove the valve cover, and the first thing you may observe is the use of the silicone sealant. Now silicone sealant is perfectly fine to use, but you have to be very careful not to use it in excess. As you can see here, what can potentially happen with silicone sealant is it ends up inside your oil, which then can potentially clog up all the oil galleries and starve crucial components of oil, which can potentially cause catastrophic engine failure. So yeah, remove as much of this stuff as you possibly can. especially if you see any that fall in and around all of your camshafts and things like that. So moving slowly upwards, the next thing we are going to do is remove the inlet trumpets, whatever you want to call them, the chrome pieces. Now if you are just removing the plenum chamber, you don't need to completely remove these, but as part of my rebuild I'm completely removing mine because I do plan to remove all the injectors and the fuel rails and everything else. So as you can see, they're held in place, each with 2 Allen bolts. On top you've also got these clips that you need to remove. Now if you've got the proper tools, this helps absolutely massively rather than just levering them off with a flat screwdriver. It makes such light work when you have the right tool. Now it is a little bit OCD, but I have noticed that some clips are going the wrong way in a different direction to the others. So this does tell me that these have definitely been off at some point in the past. Now when I put these back, I will be making sure that these are going all in the right direction. Now with regards to these chrome pipes, I may or may not choose to get them re-chromed. But to be honest, the finish of them, it really isn't too bad considering their age. They may come up just nicely with a bit of a polish, but we shall see. Now these bolts holding on these pipes proved to be very, very tight. I did manage to get in between the pipes okay with a 3/8 extension bar. It was a little tight, but I couldn't get a firm grip on the Allen bolts because they were at a little bit of an angle. The best thing I found to use for this was a T-key because it was long and thin. Yes, they were tight, but I managed it in the end. I got there eventually. At the end of the day, it's just really, really important to get a good grip of these Allen bolts, because the last thing you want to do is strip one of these or round it off, because trying to get it out in between these pipes would be an absolute nightmare once you round it off. Now naturally, it goes without saying, you want to be extremely careful working around here because you do not want to drop any bolts inside your engine. So yeah, be extremely careful. Now the silicone hoses which connect these pipes to the plenum chamber, lots of people replace these with different colours or multicolours in the Italian flag colours. Personally, that isn't my cup of tea, so I will be keeping mine black. So with those all out of the way, you can see clearly the paper gaskets, 5 out of 6 of which were left behind, 1 of which came away with the trumpet, but those will be replaced. Here you can see the zip ties on the connector blocks to the rear injectors as well, those will be sorted out. So the next thing you need to do is remove 4 bolts holding down the fuel rails. And then we can proceed to remove the fuel rails away from the injectors themselves. Now when you disconnect and remove these fuel lines and fuel rails, make no mistake, you will get a little bit of fuel coming out. So what I did is put something in between to absorb some fuel and avoid anything dropping down inside the engine as well. At the side I've got a little jug. I'm not expecting much to come out, but you never know, it's there just in case. Now there is lots of speculation out there, people saying that you do need to remove your fuse to your fuel pump or remove your fuel cap to release any pressure. Guys, when your engine isn't running, your fuel pump isn't running, therefore the lines won't be under pressure. You don't need to do any of that. Just disconnect your fuel line away from your fuel rail and you will be fine. You will get a little bit of fuel out there, but as you can see here, there should be very, very little, but do bear in mind your fuel rails will be full of fuel. Now the next thing to do is to remove these clips holding on the fuel rail to your injectors. These things do pry away very, very easily. Now I will be getting these little clips replated with the rest of the hardware. When I get them back, they should look good as new. Now obviously, needless to say, yes, I am getting the fuel rails re-zinc plated as well in yellow zinc to the OEM specification or colour. Those once again should look fantastic when I get these back. Okay, so with those clips removed, you should be able to pull the fuel rails up away from the injectors. You may find, as I did, that some of the injectors may come with the fuel rail, but some injectors may stay intact with the engine, but either way, it's not a problem. Now I'm taking the fuel rail away with that cloth, which is absorbing as much fuel as possible. Now you will still have some fuel left behind, but I'm using some blue roll here to soak it up as much as I possibly can. So once you've removed that, you can remove the injectors. Just give them a bit of a wiggle and a good tug. They will be quite firm or difficult to remove, but they should come out without too much persuasion. Now whenever you replace or refit injectors, guys, it is always good practice to also replace the injector rubber O-rings or seals. So yes, when it comes to reassembly, I will be replacing these. So the next thing to remove, guys, are the base plates to the intake runners. These are held in place by, again, 6mm Allen bolts. Now naturally I will be getting these base plates refinished together with the rocker covers and the plenum chamber. Bear in mind that each bolt should also come with a washer, so don't leave them behind or accidentally drop them into the engine when you're pulling them out. So with those base plates removed, I can clearly see inside the engine and see all of the nice clean valves. Now the surface areas are very clean for these base plates. Now what I choose to do is completely mask everything off. This helps prevent anything from dropping down inside the engine, whether it would be nuts or bolts or just dirt. But what I also did is cut out around them as close as I could, because I do intend to clean this engine up as much as possible before reassembly. So the next thing to do, guys, is completely remove the ECU, which is obviously located to the back of the plenum chamber on the CF2. Also on the back of the plenum chamber, you need to unbolt this little box. If you just pull the cables gently out, you will see inside there 2 Phillips screws. Located around the back, you need to unbolt 1 earth strap held in place yet again by another Allen bolt. Once I remove the strap, I then reinsert the bolt just for safekeeping for now. Okay, so we've removed the earth strap, the ECU and this little plastic box all away from the plenum chamber. Now the next thing to do is you've got a couple of bolts which are holding on a little support brace or whatever you want to call it. We need to undo those now. Okay, now this little sucker of a bracket which holds the fuel line in place, these snap extremely easily. In fact, 1 out of 2 of my clips is broken, but this one is still intact. What you want to do is bend this little bit out so this little bit can pull out from underneath. It does clip in underneath. Now what I would recommend doing is heating up the plastic a little bit to make it a little bit more malleable, otherwise it's just going to snap. As you can see, one of mine has already snapped, whoever has removed it in the past. But yeah, just be extremely careful with it. So once that is open, you can pull that fuel line out of the way and then remove the bracket completely away from the plenum chamber, which is held in place with yet again 2 Allen bolts. Now you don't need to remove or unbolt this little box, guys, but personally I choose to move it out of the way. If you just open it up, it is held in place yet again by 2 Phillips screws. I wanted this out of the way because I want to clean the engine block as much as possible prior to reassembly. Okay, the next thing I'm doing is removing this breather, held in place by a clip and an Allen bolt, so that is up out of the way. You've also got 2 more hoses at the back just here. One is a clip, just undo that, pop it off, and then what I did is close the clip back up again just to prevent losing that clip. The other one is just a press clip, just pinch that and that just pops straight off, no problems. Now the next thing I'm going to do is remove the throttle body, nice and easy. Just remove the electrical connector and then 4 Allen bolts, and then the throttle body will come off extremely easily. Now as you will see in a moment, this throttle body is extremely clean. It's so clean because I actually cleaned it not so long ago. Okay, so the plenum chamber is actually held on by 2, yes, just 2 little Allen bolts. Once you remove these, the plenum chamber should pull straight off with minimal effort. Okay, so now we have the rocker cover to the rear bank completely exposed. Removal is exactly the same as the front bank. The only difference is the rear bank has this little bracket, but everything else is exactly the same process as the front bank. So off with the valve covers. Now as you can see, the engine is extremely clean. Now obviously again you've got some gasket sealer left behind. This has been used to excess, but as long as I get it all out it should be fine. Now obviously the wrong colour gasket sealant has also been used here. When I come to reassembly, if I'm going to use it, I will use black or grey, and I'll be using it a lot less than what's been used here. So yeah, everything very, very clean. I'm very pleased how it looks and how it's turned out. So yeah, very, very happy.
So there you go, guys and girls, that is part 4 now complete. So yes, now I am completely surrounded by parts, nuts and bolts absolutely everywhere now. It does get a little bit unnerving when your car is so stripped down, but it's just a case of holding your nerve and you will get there eventually. Now the most important thing with any kind of project when there's so many bolts and parts is just to keep track of absolutely everything. Keep everything organised, write everything down as much as you possibly can. That is the most important thing, at least I think. Now also I do have these videos to refer back to, which is, you know, it does make my life a little bit easier, but yeah, write everything down. That's the most important thing. I don't want to teach you guys how to suck eggs, but yeah, just write everything down, keep track of everything. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I shall see you next time in part 5. In the background, what I'm going to be doing is arranging all the de-rusting, a lot of it zinc plating, powder coating. I don't know if I'm going to get the cam covers powder coated or just blasted or paint them myself. I still don't know yet, but I'll try and get part 5 done as soon as I possibly can. So yeah, there you go. Thank you for watching as always. See you next time. Bye bye.